it really boils down to one foundational thing, and that is trust. If leaders can build trust among their followers, if the government can be trusted by the people, the dreams of the nation can come true one step at a time. Hope built upon the foundation of trust becomes the pillar of social fabric that creates miracles. The first and foremost action of the leaders of Kenya is to shift their perspective from ecosystem to ecosystem perspective. Never consider it easy to think that well, let alone to practice it. However, it's not impossible. It only needs to resolve to do the impossible possible with the help of the following story. And I was at the national conversation yesterday in that meeting, and I observed one very important thing there about Kenyan leaders. And that is that all Kenyan leaders have acknowledged and knew and are aware about Kenya's problems. And this is the most important thing because it's half of solving the problem. And I will proceed to the story, this story. More than 2,000 years ago, there was this teacher who promised all the lofty and beautiful things for a group of people who came to him to listen to his teachings. Excited by what the teacher told them, they started wishing to be his students or followers. Knowing what they think, he said to them, I quote, "If anyone wishes to follow me, he must deny himself and set aside selfish interests, and be willing to endure whatever may come to believe in me, confirming to my example in living, and if need be, suffering or perhaps dying. For whoever wishes to save and love his life in this world will eventually lose it through death. But whoever loses and hates his life in this world will find it for all eternity. For what will it profit a man if he gains the whole world of wealth, fame, and success, but forfeit his soul? Or what will a man give in exchange for his soul?" This teacher, as you know, was Jesus of Nazareth, and the students, his disciples. He demonstrated to them how to deny himself for serving others, and they did what he showed them. This is from the book of Matthew, the Message version of translation. Is it a huge demand? Resounding yes, but worth it. Leaders must start relearning that they are the primary reason for Kenya's problems, shift their minds, and become models for renewing and restoring Kenya's shattered hope. The late famous Ethiopian singer had a song that says, "When you point out with your index finger to others, the others' these three fingers, point to yourself."
So apparently now the president of Republic of Kenya, we all know him as President Samoei William Ruto. Now there was a meeting where an Ethiopian pastor, an Ethiopian preacher, let me use the word preacher, came and he condemned the things that President William Ruto has been doing, because it's not only Kenyans who are watching the evil things that Mr. William Ruto is doing. We are watching it as the whole world, as the black community. We know how much the West has oppressed Africa. And President Ruto took himself and sit on that throne, the throne of oppression, the throne that has seen many African leaders pass away. It hasn't been nice. Ruto sitting on that chair was a sign of betrayal. And now these preachers stood up and he condemned the evil things that the president, William Ruto, has done. Remember one thing, Ruto is a president-elect. He is not a monarch. He has to be elected. He is not succeeded any seat. And what he does can even make people to think of impeaching him. I don't want to say much about what this preacher said, but this preacher was just a representative of the Africans. Without further ado, I want us to jump into this video, listen to what the preacher said, and then I'll give you my thoughts by the end of the video, where we'll also have a deep, critical analysis.
Years ago, I asked my Norwegian friend, who served as Norway's foreign minister and finance minister, to tell me the magic of Norway's phenomenal position in the world. As you know, Norway, by all indexes of development, are at the top of the world. Be it economic, political, freedom, happiness, they are the most happy people in the world. So I was inspired by that and asked this friend of mine, Norwegian friend of mine, how did they do that? I expected him to give me a 1 or 2 hour lecture to help me understand the intricacies of nation building so that I might copy it for Ethiopia. He said to me, and I quote, "When and if the leaders start practicing this, they can no doubt build trust among the people of Kenya. Then and only then can they lead the people with an authoritative moral ground. Hope is the mother as well as the offspring of purpose. The power of hope inspires leaders to lead with purpose and the people to live up to it. And clear purpose in return springs ever-reinforcing renewal of hope. Without a purpose, though, hope can diminish and eventually will die out. In that sense, we may say that purpose is a flame of the hope." A few months after I started living in the United States, I asked myself this question. If America, only with 200 years of history, becomes so prosperous and at the top of the world, why Ethiopia, with thousands of years of history, remained among the poorest? It's a huge question. Maybe even difficult to obtain a consolidated and closer to the truth answer. However, it's a worthy question and a timely inquiry for such an era like we have now, especially for the current generation of Kenyans and Africans. The question led me to a nearby library and studied the founding America and found out 3 fundamental things. Number 1 is trust in God. That's why Americans say, "In God we trust," even though now they are forgetting it. Number 2, a clear and transcendent purpose, vision of their context, an idea for themselves. Number 3, selfless band of leaders. These are the 3 foundational things that I found out from my study about the founding America, not the now America. And finally, these things created the people of hope. I think Africa lacks all, or at least a few, of these basics. Africa needs African idea. A purpose that learns from other countries' experiences, but basically tuned to its nature and serves our context. We don't need copying, we need adapting. Because I have a painful experience of copying communism, socialism to Ethiopia and failed. Most importantly, Kenyans need selfless leaders with purpose-driven leadership. Selfless leaders create selfless people. Leadership is influence, right? A shift from ecosystem to ecosystem which demands self-dying, as studies show, can establish people's social consciousness that defies immorality, stagnation, and degeneration. This kind of people, in turn, breeds hopeful, dynamic leaders from among its generations. I deliberately focused on leaders, not the people, for the sake of time. After all, if the role of leaders gets right, it's not difficult to shape the people's minds. Have you noticed in the biblical stories that God's anger is very strong and his punishment is merciless when it comes to leaders most of the times? When the leaders of Kenya make themselves right, they will have the power of reinventing institutions, starting from government all the way down, which is critical in solving problems, for example, corruption. Reinventing institutions includes reviewing old policies, laws and regulations, structures, and of course, the manpower, as you of course know more than I do. However, we need most important characteristics to reinvent institutions. Have you wondered why the Bible refers to two wild animals in particular? Especially one wild bird and one wild animal, an eagle and a lion. It's all over in the Bible. Have you wondered about that? Neither elephants nor hippos, big ones and very strong ones, but not vultures, nor of course hyenas, but eagles and lions. I found it from my readings. There is no other animal or animal bird like the eagle with a clear and far-reaching vision and a swift action. And there is no other animal like a lion, especially the African lion, like here in Kenyan safari, with confident courage and integrity. These are the most important characteristics of eagle and lion respectively, among other characteristics, of course. Hope-driven Kenyan leaders need to master these characters in their leadership to let the hope of the Kenyan people flourish. We are lucky that His Excellency, the President right now, is among the courageous leaders in Africa who speaks his mind. I'm not saying this to flatter him. I don't know flattering people, except God, but because it's a fact. I have been following his meetings, I have been following his speech, and I have become very much interested in him recently. That's why I'm saying this. Clear and far-reaching vision like the eagle, and confident courage and integrity like the Kenyan lion. The vision factor is easier for you. You already know it more than I do. I don't have to preach this for you. The courage factor may be itchy and even painful in consequence, primarily because it needs courage to cut from oneself, one part of a body from yourself. And it needs courage to perform surgery on vested interests in laws, institutions, structures, etc., but rewarding in results. allow me to bring Barack Obama's words here. Hope is not blind optimism. It's not ignoring the enormity of the task ahead or the roadblocks that stand in our path. It's not sitting on the sidelines or shirking from the fight. Hope is that thing inside us that insists, despite all evidence to the contrary, that something better awaits us if we have the courage to reach for it and to work for it and to fight for it. There is a traditional saying in Ethiopia that says, if you want to learn about the past, sojourn in the homes of the oldies. If you want to see the future, take a walk with the young. This is your time, Kenyans, to make a difference by learning from the elders and by showing them your restlessness against the status quo. Not by force of arms like I did in the past. Not bringing AK-47 and say, freedom comes out of a barrel of a gun. No. Freedom comes out of the barrel of peace and humility in the name of Jesus. But by reason and vibrance, you are the vanguard to bear the burden of Kenya and Africa. Unrelenting pursuit of hope and dream must be your sine qua non. One final thing, and I'm done, ladies and gentlemen. Let's not forget or shove aside our successes and achievements, even though they are very small. Let's recognize, celebrate, and embrace them, our successes, our achievements, with thankfulness. It helps us to be inspired, passionate, and encouraged to do more. Only with care, not to be complacent and egocentric. Humility must be the rule of the game.
So I want you to understand one thing. The preacher is a representative of the Africans. The preacher is representing those Africans who are facing oppression by the hands of African leaders such as William Ruto. Because you might not understand right now, but the situation in Kenya is not really nice. You see, Ruto is doing a lot of high taxations. For example, he's even putting tax on bread. All the other presidents have never put tax on bread. Bread has always been tax-free, but he's putting tax on bread. He's putting tax on so many things, you understand? And this thing is offending many people. It's offending many black people. Ruto even said that if anybody owns a car less than 2 million, that person has to pay an annual tax of 100,000 Kenya shillings to the Kenya Revenue Authority. No other president before has ever done such a thing. You understand? Ruto believes that if you own a car, you have a good living, you are rich. That's not the case. It shows you how primitive sometimes our leaders can be. Someone can be owning a car just to take his kids to school because he thinks it's cheaper than the public transport and it's even effective than the public transport. Owning a car does not equate you to being rich. It's a thought Africans should leave behind. Some Africans. I'm surprised President Ruto thinks so. Now it is 2 million Kenya shillings cars which are worth 2 million Kenya shillings going downwards are to pay 100,000. And a car which are 2.2 million onwards, upwards now, 2 million, 3 million, 4 million, those cars are also to pay the same tax of 100,000 Kenya shillings. Ruto believes if you can pay 2 million Kenya shillings, you can also be paying 100,000 Kenya shillings each year. That is what he believes. I'm surprised that no any other president has ever placed high tax on Africans, such as President William Ruto. And people are being pissed off by what he's doing. The thing which really exposed him was his US trip that he made. The US trip was a very big whip. He shouldn't have accepted to go to that trip in the first place. He shouldn't have accepted to sit on that throne. That throne has a lot of bad memories with Africans. Sitting in that throne is aligning himself with the people who have oppressed Africans. I'm saying the truth. The situation in DRC was the calling of the CIA. The situations, I just don't want to name them here. We have so many things that the United States of America has done to ruin Africa. Ruto sitting in that seat is a betrayal to Africans. And I'm also happy that people in Ethiopia are able to recognize this and speak it out. You understand? It's not like Africans, we are by ourselves now. No, we have our brothers all over the world. We have Africa, we have 54 countries. If you leave Kenya, we have 53 countries that were watching Ruto. We also have the black diaspora that was watching Ruto. People in Haiti are not even happy with what Ruto is doing. I don't know what's wrong with this guy. I really don't know what's wrong with this guy. With the establishment, with the coming of Ruto is when we've seen UN move from New York come to Nairobi. UN, all those years, all those presidents, why has it not happened with those presidents? Why is it Ruto? This guy has something up his sleeves, and it's high time we just pray to God to protect us from any further plans he might be having for the Africans. So thanks for watching this video, and remember to subscribe to the channel. I'll so much appreciate.